Okay, sometime last week I started putting together the construction drawings, the prospective construction drawings for this project. And about the time I got to how much was going to be involved, all of these walls come down. Regardless of what happens with the roof structure over, all of these walls come down. And so at that point I took a break and I wanted to go back to both of our plans, the one that doesn't add to the south, and then the one that I had done on my own that has the southward expansion. And I worked through those, and because of what should be substantial construction costs, I wanted to review both of these. There were issues I needed to solve with either of these projects. So I returned first to my own favorite and worked through a number of issues, and I'll run through those with you as quickly as I can. With that, and all of that sort of stuff translates straight through to the other plan, what we're going to call Plan A, which is the one that does not have any southern expansion and has the garage coming out and going up at the angle. So to the extent I can remember what I was doing at the time I saved various of these slides, we're going to review both of those projects in this, because so much of the one, whether it happens or not, applies to the other. And if the other doesn't happen, if the one without the southern expansion, if A doesn't happen, then certainly B is the next applicable alternative that I've envisioned. And I don't want to frighten you before the film actually gets underway, but there's quite a bit to cover as quickly as I can. So these are the only two plans we're currently working with, is what we're going to call A and B. And this developed out of Thip's idea, I believe, to extend, because I know that he wanted to do that to enlarge this living room, to get more living room space out of this than before when this wall was back 6 feet. So I knew that was the motivation, but unfortunately it added the space and just stretched it out and made this kitchen pretty long. At least this was my early interpretation. And that's why I wanted to look at something that seemed to make this space perhaps a little more usable than something that's so stretched out. I've come to think, though, that either of these will work. In any case, for these purposes, the one that adds to the south, it adds about 125 square feet more than this one, although most of this addition is not finished work like this here. Offhand, besides what is almost certainly its less expensive building costs, one of the things I like about the A plan is the fact that this door is in the kitchen regardless of how big this porch or landing is. I like that the door is in the kitchen. And later on in this film, we do some stuff with the cabinet planning. One of the things I've learned is that it's impossible to design this sort of space without also designing at least a semblance of the cabinetry that's going to happen. So that is kind of put together in each of these to account for various variations. If that B plan is not used, none of that work is going to be billed for applicable, except the stuff that carries over and applies to the A plan. So that was one of the things I liked about this. Obviously the long stretch out, and for the right persons, and perhaps you guys are the right people, this kitchen is, a hell of a kitchen. And I like the laundry facility. I believe the laundry facility in A is larger, and the mudroom works very well as well. So there were plenty of things I liked about this, so it was a challenge to get it to where I liked it all the way as much as I liked the one with the south expansion. The one with the south expansion, the B plan, what I didn't like about it is there's a lot of extra space up in here. I kind of like that there's space for furniture, though, the way the door sets up. On either of these walls there could be dining room type furniture. And I obviously like its division of space better than this one. Its laundry is, I would say, a little bit smaller. I don't really see a folding surface in there. But they were put together, both of them were put together so that these garages were the same size inside so that those could be compared. And if this ends up happening and you wanted larger laundry facility, perhaps another foot is gone here and this goes out and you pick that extra foot or whatever you need in the laundry facility. Because no matter what, it's going to be a pretty decent size construction project. This is going to be a deep fill to bring this slab up to where we need it, and there's going to be earthwork out here. We will talk about these roofs more extensively, but in terms of the additions, right, this as shown, which doesn't have any addition down here, the total additions, which is all here, is 1184. In here, though, is 990 square feet, this interior finish space. And this has 1120. So this addition, while you're adding 320 square feet out here, it's only adding about 120 square feet of finished interior space, because the west wall of the living room doesn't move any further west than where it is. So that's the discrepancy between the 320 added and the 120 gained inside, is the rest is added at the garage. This A addition here is represented by this blue line here. So our intrusion this way is a little less with this, and we're coming back this way with this one. But I'm going to start the way I did with this plan, as I said, trying to solve some of the issues that I was having problems with. One of them, I wanted to maintain this closet, this pantry or closet, however it ends up being treated. Regardless, I was striving to maintain that in a lot of these endeavors. Secondly, I don't like the interface. I still am not crazy about it, the interface of these stairs with the bay, but I've got it to where I can live with it for now. Putting the bay in, by the way, I looked at those joists down there. There's nothing in the way. The bay window projects about 2'9" from the surface of this foundation. So these 10 or 11 2x10s through here would have to be additional 2x10 by probably 8 feet long, would have to be sistered in beside those to create this bay. This roof, I get away from this roof. It was another thing that was perplexing to me. But first of all, I personally thought that those bay window walls ought to come to the ground. Whether those are just suspended and left up off of concrete that's finished under, left up a couple inches with all weatherproof material underneath so a person can hose that, or whether somehow this is a foundation and brought to grade. But I think that needs to be tall and brought to grade, brought down to the patio level. This roof structure over this, by the way, was the first take, and I learned later on that because of this valley here and insulation and framing requirements, this roof structure will probably not work like that over it. But returning to the stairs, not just the interface isn't bad like this, but the railings, which are required, are a little bit. I just can't live with this at all. This interface here. And this is what I came to the next possible thing that was livable, was the required handrail, aluminum or iron, just something light, and going down at that angle, and then with the door still swinging the same way it does. I'm still not delighted with it. I entertained in this plan pushing this whole bay window down this way and having the stairs this way, maybe even replacing this door so that I could have it swing this way, so that I could have the railing on this side and make more sense. I was not able to completely satisfactorily solve that, but that is what I came up with to live with for the moment. And similarly, when we get to these wall coverings, a lot of this is just motivated by not particularly my choices of material, because we could play around with that all day, and you can have plenty of feedback when you like, anytime, but just to get to something that would work at all with what we were planning to do with either of these plans. Now this was just working with that bay window roof, which is not that important. I actually should say it's possible to frame this roof as shown if it is stick framed and if the ceiling inside is kept flat no higher than it currently is. So that actually is a doable one. It's a very nice roof and works very well with the house. And it is doable from the standpoint of stick framing it. But I began to horse around with lifting that up, and I just wanted to see this. This was just my own horsing around, lifting that roof up 2 feet to bring those ceilings inside 2 feet. And so some of this is going to be ugly for a while, but we're going to explore for a while, lifting that to 10-foot ceilings inside just to see what happens. At least that was my approach when I began to look at it. And so a lot of this stuff will be ugly along the way as we try to get to something that can work. At that point then, this was its condition in a rotation around it. And now again, keep in mind I was just trying to find something that would work. And a lot of this is going to now apply, this facade work is going to apply regardless of which of these plans we use, some of it in any event. You probably can salvage enough brick that even once you take all these walls down, if you want to pay someone to lay brick up on at least this facade and this facade, and maybe with your existing brick and some new brick that's pretty close match down this way, and then the rest of this I'm showing in a vertical siding. This is like a vinyl siding, but it's board and batten. I did not look at some horizontal. We can do that. As I said, I was just trying to get somewhere. The big challenge with raising this roof or even changing this facade and not changing this facade is that this little thing becomes a little stubby piece at the end. And it will look better with the roof down. I know that, discover that as I go along. But for now, that was one of the issues, was this stubby piece at the end. And so in the early days of this, you had talked some about possibly some stone somewhere used on in this project. And so that was where I started from, is converting some of instead of laying up new brick everywhere, for the existing brick, just put stone on top of it, which is easily enough done, either on all of it or a portion of it. And then your new garage walls would be just constructed of frame without the brick, and then stone veneer applied to those. I don't know how those expenses work out and compare, but as I said, trying to get somewhere that's something that I could that would work at all better than that, and I think that does. I went to this, and I was on my stone. I was really just looking for some colors right away that would work, and I think this is so short that whatever stone you select here ought to be as horizontal as possible. This is a mid-grade horizontal, but there are even more horizontal looks. Whether this also then goes to horizontal or we do other things, just trying to occupy some of that space along that wall with that window, widening the porch out a little bit more. You know how wide? It just went out another foot wider there. All siding, you could just run siding over everything, any kind of siding you like, all siding if you like, or a portion in stone and a portion in siding. Something like this, I've widened the porch out even a little further now, and then added some more stone veneer. That roof only works if it's, well, that one would work because it's raised to 10 feet. That works on a truss. It's not that something I particularly care for at this point. And here you see how I'm capturing that little pantry here. And if you weren't going to open this window to the bathroom, if you could live without that, and maybe there's a skylight put in. I don't know if that can happen, but this could come all the way over and capture that window there. For this B plan though, because I didn't care for how this was looking out front, I reverted to lowering that to this, and because of truss considerations, energy requirements, etc., you can't really see it from this angle, but I have gone to this roof arrangement if this back addition is put on. And so at this point, because this was kind of the roof, the only roof that we could have this addition back here and solve the issues that need to be solved inside as well, this would not have to extend over the deck. It can stop here and go back. I just brought it over because it was easy and provided a balance for this piece over here, which, as I said, could come longer if a person wanted it to. But here is the rotation then of this structure going around. The next is a series of photos from the front end, from the street view, of how this particular facade, how this facade work developed and was arrived at. This was the best color I could do for this. And this had just added these half columns back at the wall, and I'm not sure, I think I'd rather not have those. Even though they stay for the moment, I'd rather not have them. The garage door casing is made larger, and I'm assuming that they're going to let us reuse this window as an egress window. It's a close call in terms of how high it is and in terms of its net clear opening, but I think it's going to be fine. We're going to call it an egress window. These are ready. As I said, it's very close to being an egress window, and they are existing, although we're taking this one out and reusing it. This was just very quick. Could I improve this by adding those? And the answer was no. And this was bringing that rock all the way across. This is about the only one where to me, the high ceilings work okay out here. So, I may have spoke too soon in eliminating them. If you wanted 10-foot ceilings, this could work. I don't think that works as well. And this drops that roof back down to your existing roof plane. They are probably going to make us do some sort of work to meet the energy code in here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. This last move, just trimmed these ends completely off and smoothed that down as well. I like that. To me, this looks pretty decent, and we can toy around with some of the treatments. But this gets us far enough along, certainly, that we can get estimates depending on what you want me to do with this facade. It gets us far enough along to put decent construction drawings together. And then going from, this is the one, because you can see the roof goes up here. This is the one that has the rear addition and requires that little higher peak at the front. Now we come back down and we don't add the addition. We go to plan A, adding this garage over here, all brick, or treating it the way we've treated the other one. Now I'm going to try to stay on track through this next little section with some of this cabinet work and some of the ceiling work. This is looking south, and this is the plan B that has that pushed back, the 6'5" or whatever it is. So when that ceiling is in the kitchen is maintained at your existing ceiling height in the rest of the house, and that comes with a caveat that we'll get to in a minute because of these energy requirements. You can have 36-inch wall cabinets and have the standard at least 18 inches between the bottom of them and the top of your countertop. That would be considered a 90-inch kitchen that fits in here. Plan B kitchen length then is 24'3", and the length of the whole Plan B south wall is 41.7. We add the 6 foot, and we end up with, it's about 15% longer at 47.9, which is pretty long. Either of them is pretty long. This is why I like the bay window in either plan, that it breaks that length up of some of that openness. So because of energy codes, anywhere that we're going to replace trusses, and we have to replace or provide new trusses at a number of locations, not over the garage but over conditioned space, we aren't going to be able to have only a standard 1/4 inch butt cut, 4 inch heel height at this wall here. That is going to have to be something that approaches 9 or 10 inches to meet energy code, structural requirements aside. And so that has to be addressed regardless. So really this 90-inch kitchen all the way through is not possible, because at least at this end something has to be done about that. And this arrives at really the end solution for me, and this isn't exactly how it will be because I changed the outside of this, but with a scissor truss inside, then we have a good 9 or 10 inch heel at both of these. It does require any of the cabinets on this wall, on this south wall, to come down to 30-inch cabinets from 36. And this applies in either the A plan or the B plan in terms of new trusses over that space and getting that energy heel that we need. In my final kind of proposal, I suggest that half of the trusses have to come off anyhow. And I guess a person could consider reusing them on the garage. At the end, in either of these structures, what I arrived at, as at least I preferred it as a solution, were scissor trusses, and those just from the doorway, from east of the doorway, west to the garage wall, west to this wall. Trusses like this with the eaves outside set even. This gives you about a 10-foot ceiling at the peak. These cabinets on that wall in either plan would have to be 30-inch cabinets. Now this is the rest of that kitchen plan, the rest of Plan B, as you wrapped around that bend here and with the scissor truss. Now looking the other way toward the pantry cabinet over here and through the countertops, this is where I demonstrate they won't let us do this with this. This is what's done in the rest of your house, but they won't let us do this except over the garage, which is why I said maybe the trusses that have to come off. I don't know how those hip ends are put together, but our plan does call for a new hip end of the identical size that exists. And if all that plaster is dropped, maybe it makes sense to relocate those trusses. I don't know. But for the new part, one way is to use a heavy end-bearing truss and just have this little slope here, and then a flat ceiling all the way across that is at the same height as your hallway ceiling. These cabinets still can't, unless they're custom, they still have to be about 30-inch cabinets. You might be able to get away with 36s pushed up here tight. And the second way is, and this is on the B plan, but I'll show you it on the A plan, I believe, with a scissor truss looking this way. And then this dining room area here, that ceiling stays the same height as the hallway, as does the ceiling over the stairwell, except for this portion of the stairwell ceiling, which would be sloped. The other alternative at the dining room side would have been to continue that ceiling plane here across the top of the bay window and all the way to this wall here. But because of the bay window and the way the furniture sets up, I did not want to break that ceiling up. I want to maintain a whole place at that location. Now this was showing, you can't see it here, but this is that sloped ceiling, and a portion of it continues across here, so it comes up sloped and then is flat. I got away from that though, and you can do what you like. This was finding out that that hip roof was not going to work. And these are not the finished photos yet. I'll get to those in a minute, because this ceiling actually comes up. But over here, it's a cathedral ceiling like that, or it's something flattened out like that with an accommodation for the energy requirements and structural requirements probably as well out here at the margins. And from this other angle you can see this a lot better, like this. And maybe that's preferable. From here you can see it. You can't see the bay window going out here, but the table would situate up under. And a light fixture, if it's going to be centered over that table, will have to be integrated somehow with where this break line occurs. But I like all of this. Now, so far we've been talking about just replacing the trusses. We have to tear some of them off regardless, but in terms of the new trusses, replacing from this side of the door over, going west, and leaving these ones alone, maybe making some sub-modifications down underneath them, but leaving these original trusses here alone all the way back through the rest of the house. This should make this a little more clear. These red lines here are your existing roof planes. So everything west of this hip or this peak here, in any event, has to go. And so the first break is to just tear off everything. The first break is to tear off everything from here and then replace from here out. And that would necessitate a flat ceiling like I showed, sloped at the corners here and then flat across. The next break is to bring it up to here and take all of this off to that point. And these remain original, and this is all new from here. Whether those trusses come off, I'm not sure whether they're built as one piece across here or whether they've got pieces coming out this way. I haven't gone that far back in that attic. But it is certainly feasible that those are just relocated over there, particularly since in the garage they're not going to require an energy heel on those trusses. And that was all for the A plan for this point, for points this way. If you wanted to take all of these trusses off and cathedral this whole space here, where this is all just vaulted up, and you could leave this one, they can make this truss so that this comes down and maintains a normal ceiling height, flat ceiling height in here. But then all of this is vaulted, and then all of this is vaulted. Like this. And again, depending upon conditions, the trusses you take off from here to there can also be used in that last portion of the garage up to the turn. Alternately, it's like that. Or a thing I'll show you in a minute where this ceiling does not continue, this slope ceiling does not continue across the dining room, but does across the stairwell. Last, with regard to the A plan, if these trusses are left, regardless if these trusses are left in place or replaced, to accomplish the bay window you'll need a couple 9.5, 9.25 inch LVLs across here, and those trusses are suspended from those. In the event the B plan is something that's gone toward, all of this truss stuff still applies through here, the same thing, except that it's a bigger ceiling because it's a wider span. If you leave these trusses on here, you require column here. I have this column here. It's not really required. I mean, it helps to make that member smaller. I think it's a couple 11.25 inch LVLs through there, and 9.25 through here. Ignore this. So the B plan can be built and leaving these trusses in place if you like, but you would have to live with a column here. I haven't shown any finished photos with that column in place. In any event, if you wanted to leave those trusses, you would need this 2 9.25 inch LVLs and a couple columns, or one anyway. And so the B plan with the existing roofs over it, this is the garage wall right here, the west garage, existing west garage wall here. It had occurred to me these trusses could all be left in place. If you were okay with that flat ceiling coming through there, these trusses could all be left in place. That column is required, and it might have to be a little larger than that, but that column would be required, and then you could beam over to here with 2 or 3 14-inch LVLs and suspend all those trusses at that location, and the same with these trusses here. And you would have this one column here, and then this beam would be pushed up into the ceiling, and then the ceiling would come across here flat. However, I'm almost sure they're going to require us to meet the energy requirements out here at this wall, which means you have either flat here and then sloped across here and possibly here as well, or you remove those trusses, relocating them if that's possible and sensible. Now this next to last section is me trying to solve a few of the problems or a few of the issues that I saw or that I did not care for with regard to A or B. With plan A, besides what I talked about earlier with in terms of the division of the space, I did not like a couple things. First, starting out here, I would like to get this door a little further north, and that would require eating up another foot or so going this way with these stairs, this mudroom wall. This corner then comes out, the mudroom becomes a little deeper, but I would like to get a little bit more margin so that this door is not in front of that doorway there. That was kind of minor. The other thing was how long this was, but I have really come around to this being a big kind of kitchen. But the other thing is I don't like the refrigerator, these two things being kind of orphaned over here, and I really kind of liked, if I did get the cooktop and so forth over there, I like that the cook or whoever's at the stove, it has a view out this window or out this door, which is presumably a full light door. So I took the cooktop arrangement, the cooktop and its hood and its two flanking cabinets, and moved them over like this on this wall, on this west wall here, putting the cooking tower here. The ovens are right across here, shifting the sink down here, leaving the refrigerator in place. I thought this was a better division of the areas in that kitchen. And then this becomes a big workspace or cleanup space here adjacent to the dining. And in doing that, I added this wall at the end so that this isn't just open to the living area here. And I don't know that it makes sense, but this wall can come out some to the extent where there's still a good pathway through here, but I don't know if that's helpful or not on that. But I do like the cooktop arrangement over here and the rest of this as it's shown. So that was the only thing I really had to address with that. And then we cover a little bit of the floor covering and how and if that's going to be divided at the finished photos. And I don't know whether you have a plan to divide the floor covering into wood and tile or something else. I'm assuming back here is going to be tile or linoleum or some other pergo or something water resistant. Whether that happens in the kitchen, this was a division of the space that I came up with. But I came back here to see about moving this and seeing what could happen. I kind of like it. It pushes this up about a foot, as I said, and then you either have this larger mudroom here, not that larger because we wanted to accomplish our objective of pushing that door up. So if I keep the mudroom the same size, I end up with that as the final, which is a real improvement on the laundry. Besides doing what I want to with this door, it's a real improvement on the laundry. This is all folding space here, I mean, if that's what you wanted. And I have the sink over here. Yeah, there is a little extra move with plumbing that, but this is all going to be open underneath, or we'll have to talk about how we want to do that foundation there. But I did like this improvement at the laundry facility. And then this last thing, because this door opens up onto the kitchen here, because everything is so nice out here, B, and this is close to the grade, close enough to the grade that it's not an expensive undertaking. It would be nice either now or in the future to entertain that being a little larger, enough that you can get a little table out there, as well as any grill or anything like that, and that could be covered as well. Finally, on this, on any of the plans, this is a Honda Pilot, this year's Honda Pilot, just to show you how this is divided. And if you want to adjust these numbers in the final go and shift this garage door over, right now the garage door sets up so that these margins outside are about even. So, but maybe you want to push it over a little bit. Also, what I wanted to mention is this is a 5-foot round table with 6 seats around it. I've seen one of these that's 6 foot around, and 5 foot around will definitely accommodate these 6 seats. But this clearance is so nice, 4.9 on that side and 5.0 on this side. A person can walk around while someone is sitting at this table, and we don't have all of that negative space, all that empty space up here associated with the B plan. On the B plan, my issues, besides the laundry being smaller than the other one, and the mudroom's okay, but the laundry is smaller than the other one. This plan did not offer, which I found out after I had drawn this, that wall ovens were kind of the preferred cooking arrangement, a cooktop and wall ovens. So I did adjust this so that could be allowed for as well, and all that happens is this little cabinet gets a little smaller and this shifts up some, like that. So the living room goes from 17.9 to 16.3, and then we have the ovens at the end here, the cooktop 21 inches on that side, and etc. down through here. And I put that table in, not that furniture couldn't be here, not that this is a horrible thing, but that you can see there's a lot of kind of empty, unused space up in through here. And there's only one more section, the finished photos, and that should be rapid. If you recall, this was the A kitchen before we moved the refrigerator over, with or without that ceiling. And then this, once we move that range stack from here over to here, flip those around, then it becomes like this. This wall height is variable. It's 10 foot to the ceiling. This wall height is variable. Those cabinets can be taller. I believe that's the next thing. And I think that looks better. This is with the A plan, and this looks really nice. This floor covering arrangement, particularly if it is tied into what happens with this stack here. I have opened these cabinets up so that we break this length up a little bit here and just left these two mirroring the window. And this is fairly decent to me. These are just playing with that floor. That's the only thing that's happening, is this floor covering and how that is interfaced. And this is also acceptable to me, and I think this is what I kind of settled on. I might have squared this corner up at the very end. I don't show that here. The range I don't show, but that's going to have a vertical, and it's the easiest way is to just come straight up through the roof. So there will be a pipe that comes through that cabinet, and whether there's a little soffit built up here, a stack like that looks like a big chimney, or whether that cabinet is just abandoned and a regular range hood of whatever type you like is put in there. And those stools are actually, see, I'm showing this is one of these high tables, 36 inch, and your counters are 36, and I'm showing this counter at 42. And those chairs are actually, should be a little bit higher like that, and these ones probably should be a little bit lower. But as I said, I've really come around to the A plan when I thought it wouldn't work as well as this B plan. Besides having to concede that this space is larger and more usable over here, I'm nicely sold on this. But here are some finished photos of the B plan, which is with that southward push, and some of the few little changes here and there. This keeps the whole kitchen over on that side without the interruption of that pathway. But it doesn't have the door inside the kitchen. And if they were equal price, which I don't think they would be, I would be glad that I wasn't having to make the call. I don't know if you can actually see how this final ceiling works out over there. I didn't point that out, but this was on that A plan, and this is how I have left that ceiling all one height. Maybe you do want to just run that across though. And that is that. Hopefully that gives you enough to work with in terms of how you want to finish this out. Thanks. Wait, there's probably one last PS because I meant to say it in the film. If you did like this kitchen, and I do, but you still wanted more space in here, you could expand northward in this area here because you do still have space behind the setback line out front, and I believe you could probably push that out anywhere 2 to 4 feet to widen this space out and make it a little more proportional, and then new trusses over everything in that area. Additionally, if you did that, probably I would assume that the front wall of the garage stays at the angle but also moves forward, so it becomes, adding more space. Instead of adding it out back, we're adding it out front though. But I did want to just say that that's just a PS. I'm sorry to have dragged this out, but I think it's now been thorough anyway.